You don't look like the executive passengers we usually serve.
Vanessa handed Adrian's reserved salmon to a white passenger, then dropped a cold sandwich onto his tray. Adrian lifted the bread, and green mold covered the edge.
Then explain why my name was on that meal.
Minutes later, the crew turned his complaint into a security report, claiming he stood up, blocked the aisle, and made the crew feel threatened. Adrian had never left his seat. But one passenger had recorded the missing label, another had witnessed every word, and when Flight 620 landed in Montreal, the crew learned someone had already read the report they thought would bury him. Vancouver International Airport glowed beneath a low gray sky, its glass walls reflecting lines of travelers, rolling luggage, and the fatigue of a long morning. Adrian Cole moved through the terminal without hurry, though the meeting waiting for him in Montreal could reshape both his company and NorthVale Airways. He had spent 2 years building Cedar Bridge Analytics' new complaint review platform, a system designed to notice patterns people often missed or chose not to see. Repeated wording, unequal service adjustments. Complaints quietly closed with travel credits instead of investigated. NorthVale wanted the technology. Adrian still had to decide whether NorthVale possessed the will to use it. He carried no entourage and wore nothing meant to announce wealth. His navy suit was well-tailored but deliberately understated. The leather bag in his hand had softened at the corners after years of airports and boardrooms. Inside it sat a printed copy of the proposed $80 million agreement, marked with in his own handwriting. Because Cedar Bridge was bidding for the work, Adrian had formally disclosed the conflict before accepting the board appointment. He was barred from voting on the contract and would leave the room whenever its commercial terms were discussed. The flight was not an inspection. He had not boarded looking for failure. He wanted a few uninterrupted hours to review the contract before the board met the next morning. At the gate, priority boarding had already begun. A white businessman in a charcoal overcoat stepped ahead of him, and the flight attendant at the aircraft door brightened at once. "Good morning, Mr. Langley. Welcome back." Vanessa Pike took the man's coat before he asked and gestured toward the front cabin. "I'll have your usual sparkling water ready before departure." Her smile held an ease that came from recognition, or perhaps from assumption. Adrian offered his boarding pass next. The scanner flashed green, seat 2D, executive class. Vanessa looked at the screen, then at him. The pause lasted less than 2 seconds, but Adrian had lived long enough to understand how much could happen inside 2 seconds. Her eyes moved from his face to his suit, then to the bag in his hand. "Are you sure you're boarding the executive cabin?" she asked. Her voice stayed polite. That made the question sharper, not softer. Adrian glanced at the glowing confirmation on the scanner. "Seat 2D. Vanessa did not move aside. "Could you open the reservation in the app for me?" Behind him, the line slowed. A suitcase wheel bumped against the metal floor of the jet bridge. Adrian felt the familiar pressure to make the moment easier for everyone by pretending it meant nothing. He opened the app. Vanessa checked the booking, then asked for his membership card. Adrian produced it without comment. The highest tier NorthVale offered appeared beneath his name. Something small tightened around Vanessa's mouth. "All right," she said, as though granting an exception instead of confirming a fact. "Second row, aisle." Adrian stepped past her. He did not turn around, but he heard her greet the next passenger with warmth returned to full volume. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Mercer. So good to see you again." Across the aisle from seat 2D, Elaine Foster had already settled beside the window. Silver-haired and composed, she had the attentive stillness of someone who noticed details without making a show of it. Her eyes briefly met Adrian's as he placed his bag overhead. There was no pity in her expression, only recognition. She had watched Vanessa scan 2 passengers before him, and none had been asked to prove what the machine had already confirmed. Adrian sat, fastened his seatbelt, and opened his tablet. The first document on the screen carried NorthVale's blue and silver logo above the title, "Fair Service for Every Passenger." The opening paragraph promised dignity, consistency, and equal treatment across every cabin. Adrian read the words twice. Around him, Vanessa moved through the aisle, calling some passengers by name, taking coats offering drinks, building a small world of comfort before the aircraft had even left the gate. When she passed Adrian's row, her eyes moved over him without stopping. Elaine looked from Vanessa to the report on Adrian's screen. "Interesting reading for a flight," she said quietly. Adrian gave a faint smile. "I'm beginning to think so." Outside the window, ground crews pulled away from the aircraft. The cabin door closed with a heavy mechanical seal. NorthVale Flight 620 began its slow push from the gate, carrying Adrian east toward Montreal and toward a meeting about fairness that already felt less theoretical than it had an hour earlier. The aircraft paused near the runway while the cabin settled into its final pre-departure rhythm. Seatbelts clicked. Window shades shifted. A low murmur moved through executive class as passengers arranged jackets, phones, and glasses of water within easy reach. Vanessa returned from the galley carrying a silver tray of rolled towels. Her smile had reappeared. "Mr. Langley, your towel," she said, placing one carefully beside his drink. "Miss Mercer, please let me know if the cabin temperature is comfortable." She moved from row to row with practiced ease, remembering names, confirming preferences, making each exchange feel personal. When she reached Adrian, the smile disappeared so subtly that anyone looking away might have missed it. She placed a towel on his tray table without speaking and turned. "Excuse me," Adrian said. Vanessa stopped, though the angle of her shoulders suggested interruption rather than service. "Yes? I pre-ordered Earl Grey with lemon." She tapped her tablet once. "Not long enough to search. I don't see it. The request was confirmed when I checked in." Vanessa looked toward the galley. "We can offer water." Adrian held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Water is fine for now." He had learned long ago that some moments revealed more when left alone. Vanessa poured half a glass, set it down, and continued toward the next row. Minutes later, Vanessa passed Adrian carrying a porcelain cup toward row 3. A lemon slice rested against the saucer, and the scent of Earl Grey followed her down the aisle. "Your usual tea, Mr. Weston," she said quietly. He looked over his shoulder. Vanessa was placing a porcelain cup before a white passenger in row 3, arranging the lemon slice against the saucer as if presentation mattered. Mr. Weston thanked her without looking up from his newspaper. Adrian waited until Vanessa came forward. "You said Earl Grey wasn't available." Her eyes flicked toward the cup behind him, then back. "I said quantities were limited. You also said my request wasn't in the system. Both can be true." Her tone had sharpened, though her volume remained low. "We have to prioritize passengers who travel this route regularly." Adrian unlocked his phone and opened his NorthVale profile. His top-tier status appeared beneath his name, along with a recent travel record that covered more NorthVale flights than most people took in several years. He held the screen where she could see it. Vanessa glanced down. Recognition crossed her face, but not apology. "Points don't always reflect true loyalty," she said. "Some members earn status through corporate programs or partner promotions." The sentence was polished enough to sound procedural. Its meaning was not. Adrian lowered the phone. "And how do you determine true loyalty?" Vanessa's expression tightened. "I need to finish service before takeoff." She moved away before he could answer. The engines rose into a deeper roar. Vancouver dropped beneath them in bands of water, steel, and cloud. Adrian watched the city disappear through the opposite window while the pressure changed in his ears. He told himself not to assign motive too quickly. His work depended on resisting easy conclusions. Data mattered because memory could be colored by frustration. A missed drink was not proof. A cool tone was not proof. Even an unnecessary boarding check could be explained away. Still, he opened a blank note on his tablet and typed the time. Boarding verification requested after valid scan. Beverage preference denied. Same beverage served to row 3. He did not add interpretation. Only facts. Once the seatbelt sign turned off, Vanessa returned with a bowl of warm roasted almonds. She served Mr. Langley first, then Elaine, then the passengers behind Adrian. The cabin filled with the rich smell of toasted salt and butter. Adrian's seat, Vanessa set down a sealed packet of plain crackers. The wrapper carried NorthVale's economy logo. Adrian looked at the packet, then at the ceramic bowls resting on every nearby tray. "Are the almonds gone too?" Vanessa did not pause. That is what's available for you. For you. Two simple words, quiet enough to deny, precise enough to land. Adrian added another line to his note. 10:12 a.m. Premium snack served throughout cabin. Economy crackers placed at 2D. Across the aisle, Elaine had stopped reading. Her eyes followed Vanessa back toward the galley, then returned to Adrian. She leaned slightly toward him, careful not to turn the moment into a performance. The way she speaks to you is different from everyone else, she said. Adrian rested his hands on the tablet. He had known it. Hearing it from someone who owed him, nothing changed the weight of the thought. I was hoping I was wrong, he said. Elaine's mouth tightened with quiet disappointment. I don't think you are. Adrian looked at the crackers again. One error could drift. Two could still be coincidence. By the third, the pattern had begun to choose its own name. By noon, the cabin had settled into the muted stillness of long-distance travel. Screens glowed over lowered tray tables. Clouds stretched beneath the aircraft like a pale, unbroken field. From the galley came the warm scent of butter, pepper, and roasted vegetables, followed by the soft rattle of china as Vanessa rolled the meal cart into executive class. Her manner brightened again. Mr. Langley, your braised beef. She lifted the cover with a flourish. Ms. Mercer, the herb chicken you requested. Each meal arrived with a name, a smile, and a short explanation of the dish. Adrian watched the cart approach. As the cart stopped beside row 2, Adrian saw part of a white label on the upper tray. His surname, Cole, and the seat number 2D were clearly visible above the words, "Grilled Salmon." Vanessa noticed Adrian looking toward the labeled tray and rotated the cart slightly away from him. In row 1, the man Vanessa had welcomed as Mr. Langley lifted the cover from his beef and frowned. I thought I ordered salmon. Vanessa checked her tablet. The reservation shows beef, sir. I don't want beef. His tone carried no embarrassment, only expectation. Can you switch it? Vanessa glanced toward the labeled salmon tray. Her hand rested on the cart handle. For one brief moment she appeared to consider the obvious answer. Vanessa turned the cart slightly toward the galley, shielding the trays from Adrian's direct view. Through the reflection on Noah's phone, however, the camera captured her peeling Adrian's name label from the salmon tray before placing it in front of Langley. I'll take care of it for you. The decision happened quietly. No argument, no apology. Just a practiced adjustment made on behalf of the person she had already decided mattered more. 2 rows behind, Noah Green held his phone near the window, recording the sunlight breaking across the wing. He had spent most of his career filming places where official stories and lived reality failed to match. At first, he did not realize what his camera had captured. Then he saw Vanessa remove the label through the reflection on his screen. He lowered the phone slightly, but kept recording. Adrian said nothing while Vanessa completed the row ahead. He wanted to see whether she would acknowledge what she had done without being confronted. She did not. When the cart reached seat 2D, Vanessa glanced at the empty space in front of him. I'm afraid the salmon is no longer available. Adrian looked at the plate now sitting before Langley. It was available a minute ago. Vanessa's hand tightened on the service cloth. There was an allocation error. The tray had my name on it. Elaine stopped unfolding her napkin. Noah's phone remained low, angled toward the aisle. Vanessa leaned closer, lowering her voice as if privacy could soften the truth. Mr. Langley is one of our regular customers. Sometimes we have to be flexible. Adrian looked at her steadily. Why does flexibility always seem to require something from me? A faint flush climbed Vanessa's neck. She did not answer. Instead, she returned to the galley and opened a separate, insulated catering bag placed beneath the counter. The bag had been set aside for quality review and carried a red seal reading. Do not serve. Temperature hold. Vanessa reached inside, removed a wrapped sandwich, and covered the warning with her palm as she carried it back toward seat 2D. Adrian saw enough. So did Elaine. Vanessa peeled the removable service label from the outer catering sleeve, dropped the torn strip beside the tray, and placed the inner wrapped sandwich in front of Adrian. The plastic landed with a flat, lifeless sound. No plate, no cutlery, no explanation. This is the remaining option, she said. Adrian looked at the sandwich, then at Vanessa. Beneath her professional expression, Adrian thought he saw something harder than impatience. An expectation that he would accept the reduction without forcing her to explain it. Food, service, respect. Each had been lowered one level at a time, as though testing how little he could be given before he objected. Across the aisle, Elaine's fingers closed around her fork. Behind them, Noah checked the recording and saw the removed label clearly on screen. Adrian did not touch the sandwich. He opened the notes on his tablet and typed the time. 12:07 p.m. Pre-ordered meal reassigned after staff removed passenger label. Replacement taken from restricted storage. He set the tablet down. The cabin around him still looked polished, calm, expensive, yet on his tray sat proof that comfort could be carefully distributed, and so could humiliation. Adrian waited until Vanessa moved 2 rows away before touching the sandwich. The plastic felt cool and slightly damp beneath his fingers. When he pulled the seal apart, a sour smell escaped into the cabin, faint at first, then unmistakable. Not the ordinary scent of refrigerated bread. Something fermented, something wrong. He lifted the top slice by one corner. Green spots marked the crust, and beneath the folded lettuce sat a patch of gray-white mold spreading into the bread. For 1 second, Adrian said nothing. He had expected neglect. He had not expected this. Across the aisle, Elaine leaned forward, her expression tightening as she saw the underside of the bread. "Don't eat that," she said quietly. Adrian lowered the slice without disturbing it further and pressed the call button. Vanessa returned with visible reluctance. "Yes?" Adrian turned the tray slightly toward her. "Please look at this." Vanessa glanced down but did not bend closer. "What am I looking at?" "Mold." Elaine's voice carried more force than Adrian's. "It's clearly visible along the edge." Vanessa's eyes moved from Elaine to Adrian. "I don't see anything serious. If you don't like the sandwich, you don't have to eat it." The answer was so casual that the cabin around them seemed to sharpen. Adrian looked at the green marks, then back at Vanessa. "You served me food taken from a catering bag marked not to be served after giving my confirmed meal to another passenger." Vanessa's face hardened. "There was no such marking. I saw the red strip. Then you misunderstood what you saw." Her tone shifted from dismissal to accusation. "You are turning a routine service adjustment into something it isn't." Adrian felt the old pressure rising inside him, the invitation to doubt his own eyes because someone in a uniform spoke with certainty. He did not accept it. He took out his phone and photographed the sandwich from 3 angles, the torn service label Vanessa had left on the tray, and the remaining red adhesive along the edge of the wrapper. The camera shutter sounded small, but Vanessa reacted as though he had sounded an alarm. "You cannot turn this cabin into an evidence collection site." Elaine opened the side pocket of her tote and removed an unused resealable bag she carried for medication and travel documents. "Use this," she said, handing it across the aisle. Adrian folded the original wrapper loosely around the sandwich, placed the entire item inside the clean bag, and asked Elaine to photograph the transfer so the condition of the food was documented. Vanessa stepped closer. "Sir, I'm asking you to stop. If the food is safe," Adrian said, sealing the bag, "preserving it should not trouble anyone." Vanessa stared at him. The muscles around her jaw tightened, then released. She turned and walked quickly toward the galley. This time she did not hide her anger. A few minutes later, a man in a dark NorthVale vest approached. Derek Sloan was broad-shouldered, neat, and composed in the practiced way of someone used to arriving after problems had already been framed for him. Vanessa followed half a step behind. "Mr. Cole," Derek began, "I understand there's concern about your meal." Adrian gestured toward the sealed bag. Derek did not look at it. His eyes went to Adrian's phone. For a moment, his gaze returned to the bag as if he understood that the food should come first. Then Vanessa spoke quietly behind him, and he redirected the conversation toward the phone. "Are you recording our crew? I photographed the food served to me. Audio or video?" "No." Derek folded his hands. "We take staff privacy seriously." Elaine gave a short, disbelieving breath. "You should take spoiled food seriously." Derek glanced at her, then back to Adrian. "We can replace the sandwich with crackers and submit a service recovery request for a travel credit of up to $300 Canadian. That should address the inconvenience." Adrian studied him. The wording was revealing. Not contamination, not unequal treatment, inconvenience, something small enough to price and close. Before we discuss compensation, Adrian said, I want you to confirm 3 facts. My reserved meal was reassigned. This sandwich came from restricted storage. The bread contains visible mold. Derek's expression cooled. I'm not prepared to make those conclusions in the cabin. You haven't examined the food. I'm offering a practical resolution. No, Adrian said. His voice remained low, but the softness had left it. You're offering a price for ending the conversation. Derek's eyes narrowed. Vanessa looked toward the passengers now openly watching. Adrian rested one hand beside the sealed bag. I'm not asking you to buy my silence. I'm asking you to acknowledge what happened. Derek asked Vanessa to follow him toward the galley. But the curtain did little to hide their conversation. Their voices dropped, then rose, then dropped again. Adrian could not make out every word. He did not need to. He could see Vanessa's hands moving in sharp, defensive gestures, and Derek nodding as though the conclusion had arrived before the facts. When they returned, Derek carried a tablet against his chest. His posture had changed. He was no longer there to inspect food. He was there to manage a passenger. Mr. Cole, he said, your continued pursuit of this matter is creating tension in the cabin. Adrian looked around. No one was arguing. No one was standing. The aisle remained clear. The only unusual object in sight was the sealed sandwich beside his hand. I'm seated, he said. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't blocked service. And I haven't refused a safety instruction. Derek's eyes moved briefly toward the other passengers. Disruption isn't always loud. Neither is discrimination, Elaine said. Her voice was calm, but it carried farther than she intended. Several heads turned. Derek glanced at her, then down at the tablet. Mom, we're handling this. No, Elaine replied. You're describing him instead of looking at the food. Adrian saw a flicker of irritation cross Derek's face. It vanished quickly, replaced by the neutral expression of someone trained to make authority sound reasonable. Mr. Cole was offered a replacement and compensation. He declined both. Because neither addressed what happened, Adrian said. Derek began typing. Adrian watched the words appear in short lines across the screen, visible for a moment before Derek angled it away. Passenger declined resolution. Continued to challenge crew authority. Captured images involving staff. Situation may escalate. The language was clean, official, almost bloodless. It removed the transferred meal, the warning label, the mold, and Vanessa's refusal to inspect any of it. It turned evidence into behavior and behavior into risk. Adrian felt something tighten behind his ribs, not anger exactly, recognition. He had seen this mechanism in corporate reports before. When a complaint became inconvenient, the institution changed the category. A service failure became a difficult customer. A factual question became an attitude problem. A refusal to disappear became escalation. You didn't write down what she said, Elaine told Derek. You didn't write down what I saw. Derek continued typing. I'm documenting the operational concern. That is the concern, Adrian said. You are deciding which facts count. Vanessa stepped forward before Derek could respond. Her composure had thinned. You don't resemble the executive passengers we usually serve. The sentence landed without force, but no one mistook its direction. Adrian turned toward her. What part do you mean? Vanessa blinked. Excuse me, my suit, my voice, or my skin? The cabin went still. Derek looked at Vanessa, warning her with his eyes. Elaine lowered her hands to her lap. Behind Adrian, Noah raised his phone fully now, no longer pretending to film the clouds. Vanessa's face flushed. I'm talking about knowing how to conduct yourself in this environment. Adrian held her gaze. I asked for the meal I reserved. Then I asked you to acknowledge spoiled food. Which part of that does not belong in this environment? Vanessa looked away first. A few passengers shifted in their seats, no longer hiding their attention. One man lowered his headphones. A woman across the aisle unlocked her phone. Derek stepped between Vanessa and Adrian, trying to restore the shape of control. That's enough. Adrian looked past him toward the polished galley, the untouched china, the folded linens, the symbols of premium service arranged with care. Then he looked at the sandwich sealed in plastic. It was the clearest evidence, but not the first. The first had been Vanessa's pause at the door. the extra questions. The missing tea, the economy crackers, the reassigned meal. Each choice had been small enough to dismiss alone. Together they formed a path, and every step along it had required Adrian to surrender something so someone else could remain comfortable. Derek stepped into the forward galley and lifted the service phone. He spoke in a low, clipped voice, careful with every phrase. Passenger in 2D. Refusing crew direction, continuing to document staff, situation may escalate. He did not mention the mold. He did not mention the reassigned meal. By the time the message reached the cockpit, Adrian had been reduced to a category. Captain Louise Barrett emerged less than 3 minutes later. She was 54, with silver beginning at her temples and 4 gold stripes across each shoulder. Her expression carried the contained irritation of someone pulled away from a more important task. The first officer remained in command while she moved down the aisle. Passengers straightened without being asked. Uniforms changed the gravity of a room. Louise stopped beside Adrian's seat and looked first at Derek, then at Vanessa, then finally at Adrian. Her eyes passed over the sealed sandwich without settling there. "I've been told you're interfering with cabin service." Adrian rested both hands on the armrests. "You've been told one version." Louise's mouth tightened. "Then, give me yours." He did, without decoration. His ticket and membership were valid. Vanessa had questioned his right to be in executive class after the scanner confirmed it. His reserved tea had been denied and then served behind him. His meal had been transferred to a white passenger after his name was removed. The sandwich placed before him contained visible mold. Vanessa had said he did not resemble the passengers usually served in that cabin. Through it all, he had followed every safety instruction. Elaine spoke before Louise could respond. "That is exactly what happened." Noah raised his phone slightly. "I also have video of the meal label being removed and the sandwich being taken from a catering bag marked not to be served." Louise glanced at the first few seconds of the recording, but stopped before the meal transfer appeared. "I cannot conduct a full investigation in the aisle," she said. "The full service dispute will be reviewed after landing. Until then, I need this confrontation to end." "This stopped being a service dispute when your crew rewrote it as a safety concern," Adrian said. Louise's gaze hardened. "You need to stop photographing and documenting staff while they're performing their duties." "I will not obstruct them," Adrian replied. "I will stop taking new photographs while service continues, but I will not delete what I have already documented or waive my right to file a complaint." Even the nearby service sounds seemed to recede. Derek stood behind Louise with the faint relief of someone watching authority confirm his decision. Vanessa kept her eyes on Adrian, but her confidence had returned. Louise took one slow breath. "Your refusal to end the dispute is now the issue." Adrian looked at her steadily. "No, my refusal to erase evidence is the issue." Elaine shifted toward the aisle. "Captain, he is not dangerous. He is not disruptive. He was served spoiled food after being treated differently from every white passenger around him." Louise turned to her. "Mom, please remain seated and allow the crew to manage this. You are using safety language to avoid looking at discrimination." A murmur moved through the cabin. Louise heard it. Her posture stiffened. Authority was easiest when no one named what it was doing. Derek showed her the draft report, which falsely stated that Adrian had repeatedly attempted to stand, delayed meal service, and ignored a direct instruction to stop confronting the crew. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I am authorizing an unruly passenger report. Airport security will meet this aircraft in Montreal. The incident may also affect your ability to travel with NorthVale in the future." The threat was delivered without heat. That made it heavier. Adrian felt a pulse of anger, deep and controlled. Not because he feared being questioned at the gate, but because he understood how quickly an official record could outlive the truth. Derek's report would become the first version entered into the system. Every later explanation would be forced to defend itself against it. Elaine stared at Louise in disbelief. "You are threatening his travel rights because he preserved a moldy sandwich." Louise looked toward the cockpit. On an aircraft, final authority rests with the crew. Adrian met her eyes. His voice stayed quiet. "Authority does not turn false information into fact. For the first time, Louise hesitated, only a fraction of a second. Then she turned away, returned to the cockpit, and signed the report built from Derek's account. The door closed behind her with a hard mechanical click. Adrian looked at the preserved evidence beside him and understood that the danger had changed. The food could be tested. The video could be played. The harder thing to repair would be the story already traveling ahead of him toward Montreal. The cockpit door had barely closed before Adrian opened the aircraft's Wi-Fi portal. His hands remained steady, though something inside him had shifted. Until that moment, the crew's conduct had been a chain of choices made in front of him. Now it had become a record being built about him, one capable of following him long after the flight landed. He opened a secure message to Maya Brooks. She answered within seconds, "Are you safe?" Adrian looked toward the galley before replying. "Safe enough. I need preservation, not intervention." He wrote with the same precision he used in board meetings. "Contact Sonia Malik and request an immediate preservation order for the meal records, backup food inventory, temperature logs, and incident report from Flight 620. Ask NorthVale's compliance team to search prior complaints involving Vanessa Pike and Derek Sloan. Alert our counsel that the airline may classify me as an unruly passenger." Maya called him immediately. Her voice came through his earpiece, low and controlled. "Do you want me to contact the airline president?" "No. Adrian, they're preparing security for Montreal." "Then let them prepare. I want the record before anyone edits the story." Maya knew better than to argue when his voice became this quiet. She had worked beside him for 8 years and had seen him angry only a handful of times. His anger never arrived as volume. It arrived as focus. "I'll start now," she said. "Send me every timestamp you have." Adrian forwarded his notes, photographs, seat number, and the names Elaine and Noah had given him. Maya transferred Adrian's photographs, timestamps, witness names, and preservation requests to Sonia Malik, NorthVale's Vice President of People and Service Standards, who was already in Montreal for the next morning's board meeting. Sonia replied 7 minutes later with a single line, "Preserve everything. I am opening a preliminary review now." She then authorized NorthVale's compliance team to retrieve the internal complaint records. Then he waited. Outside the window, the clouds broke over a vast sweep of dark water and scattered land. Inside the cabin, Vanessa resumed service as though nothing had changed. She collected plates, offered coffee, and avoided Adrian's row. Derek spoke softly into his tablet, adding details to a report Adrian could not see. 20 minutes later, Maya reported that Sonia had authorized NorthVale's compliance team to search the previous 14 months of premium cabin complaints. The internal review identified 12 reports involving differential treatment. 4 named Vanessa Pike. Adrian read the summaries slowly. The first came from a black consultant flying from Calgary. His boarding pass had scanned correctly, yet Vanessa asked him to verify his ticket 3 times and questioned whether he had entered through the wrong boarding lane. The complaint had been closed with 5,000 points and a standard apology. The second came from a black female executive whose reserved meal had been reassigned to a white frequent flyer. She had been offered a voucher after being told the crew needed to protect the expectations of established customers. No witness interviews had been conducted. A third passenger wrote that after asking why his drink order had been skipped twice, Vanessa described him as tense and not suited to the atmosphere of the cabin. His complaint was marked resolved after a customer service agent issued a discount code. Adrian scrolled through the language. Different names, different routes, the same structure. Question belonging. Remove service. Reframe objection as behavior. Offer compensation. Close the file. He felt no satisfaction in being proven right, only a dull heaviness. These people had raised their voices through the proper channels and received points in return. Their complaints had not disappeared because they lacked detail. They had disappeared because no one had placed them beside one another. Maya called again after receiving an update from Sonia. "There's more." NorthVale's compliance team found that Derek reviewed 2 of the 4 complaints involving Vanessa. Adrian looked toward the galley. Derek was speaking to Vanessa with his back turned. How were they closed? Insufficient evidence. Customer appeasement issued. No formal pattern review. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Cedar Bridge's proposed system had been designed for exactly this failure, not to decide guilt, but to prevent repeated signals from being buried in separate files. NorthVale had spent months praising the technology while continuing to ignore the human cost of not having it. Maya lowered her voice. I can send this straight to legal and tell them who you are. Don't build the case around me. Why not? Because they should not need my title to believe the evidence. He typed a message before she could respond. Don't prove they're wrong because of who I am. Find out how many people before me were not believed. A long pause followed. Understood, Maya said. Adrian locked his tablet and looked across the aisle. Elaine watched him with quiet concern. Bad? She asked. Adrian glanced toward the bag on his tray. Older than this flight, he said. Sonia Malik read the first packet twice before speaking. She had spent 20 years inside corporate systems and knew how quickly urgency could bend judgment, especially when the person at the center of an incident held power. Adrian's title would not become evidence, so she separated the facts from the people and sent 3 independent requests, one to operations, one to food safety, and one to customer service records. No assumptions, she told each team. Verify the sequence. Over the next 2 hours, preliminary findings began arriving from separate teams. Operations confirmed Adrian Salmon had been loaded in Vancouver under his name and assigned to Seat 2D. The transfer log showed Vanessa's employee account had changed its status to service reassignment. The passenger who received it held a lower loyalty tier than Adrian. Food safety identified the sandwich batch from its partial packaging code. The batch had been placed on hold after an extended refrigeration failure at the catering facility, and one package in the same lot had already been flagged for a broken seal. The entire batch should have been removed before boarding. The catering inventory log showed that the backup sandwich was removed from restricted stock at 12:06 p.m. Vanessa's service tablet recorded the replacement meal at Seat 2D 1 minute later. Customer service then compared Derek's report with the available evidence. His account mentioned no spoiled food, no reassigned meal, no witness statement, and no passenger video. It claimed Adrian had stood in the aisle and obstructed service. Noah's time-stamped footage, supported by Elaine's statement and 2 additional passenger accounts, showed Adrian seated throughout the confrontation. Sonia felt her expression harden. A poor judgment call could be corrected. A report that removed inconvenient facts was something else. She contacted Montreal Airport security directly. Do not approach Seat 2D as a threat, she said. No restraints, no public escort. Remain outside the aircraft unless requested for order. Then she sent instructions to Flight 620. Preserve all food, wrappers, labels, service records, and incident notes. Nothing was to be discarded. In the forward galley, Derek's tablet chimed. He read the message once, then again. Preserve contaminated meal. Seal packaging. Do not alter incident documentation. His face lost color, so gradually Vanessa almost missed it. What is it? She whispered. Derek lowered the tablet. Operations wants the sandwich. Vanessa's eyes moved toward Adrian's row. Why? Because they know about it. The silence between them became heavier than panic. They had treated the sandwich as something Adrian could be persuaded to forget. Now it had become an object with a chain of custody. Vanessa straightened her scarf and walked back into the cabin carrying a fresh meal tray. Her movements were careful, almost gentle, as if softness could revise the last 2 hours. She stopped beside Adrian. Mr. Cole, I've brought you a replacement meal. Adrian looked at the untouched tray. From where? The crew reserve. It's safe. And the sandwich? Vanessa's voice dropped. There may have been confusion about the storage label. Elaine watched without pretending not to. Noah held his phone low but active. Vanessa set the tray down and forced a thin smile. I also want to apologize privately for how this has unfolded. We can discuss it quietly before landing. Adrian studied her face. The certainty she had worn earlier was gone, replaced by the strained hope that the problem could still be contained between 2 seats. Will you put the apology in the report? He asked. Vanessa hesitated. We can handle it directly. Will you write that my confirmed meal was given to another passenger? Her fingers tightened around the edge of the tray. Service changes happen. Will you write that the sandwich came from a batch marked for disposal? Vanessa glanced toward Derek. He did not meet her eyes. I don't have enough information to state that. Adrian leaned back before answering. Then you are asking me to accept an apology that leaves the report unchanged. Vanessa's lips parted, but no answer came. He pushed the replacement tray gently aside. Nearby passengers watched without returning to their meals. The polished surfaces, folded linens, and soft lighting had not changed, yet the balance of the room had. For the first time, the crew no longer controlled the only official story. Data had begun to speak, and it was saying the opposite of their report. The landing in Montreal was smooth enough to feel ordinary, which made the tension inside executive class seem even stranger. The wheels touched down, engines reversed, and the city lights slid past the windows while passengers remained unusually quiet. No applause. No rush for overhead bags. Everyone knew the flight had reached the gate, but the real arrival had not happened yet. After the aircraft reached the gate, Captain Barrett asked passengers to remain seated briefly while the door was secured. She emerged from the cockpit and stopped beside Adrian. Mr. Cole, you'll deplane first to speak with security. Adrian looked toward the preserved food on his tray. About what? The incident report. Before Louise could continue, the aircraft door opened. Sonia Malik stepped inside with a NorthVale operations manager and a food safety specialist carrying tamper-evident evidence bags. No uniformed officer approached Adrian. Sonia walked down the aisle with a tablet in one hand and calm authority in her face. Before anyone leaves, she said, I need to clarify that Mr. Cole will not be removed as a security threat. The incident report is under immediate review. She then allowed the other passengers to deplane. Elaine and Noah voluntarily remained behind to provide statements. Louise's shoulders tightened. Derek stared at Sonia as if she had stepped into a conversation he believed he still controlled. The unruly passenger report is suspended pending review, Sonia continued, and the food item at seat 2D is now part of that review. The specialist sealed the sandwich, wrapper, and torn label residue in separate bags. Then Sonia turned her tablet toward Derek. Your report states, passengers stood, refused direction, and created a threatening environment for crew. Is that your wording? Derek swallowed. Based on what I was told, yes. Sonia looked toward Noah. Mr. Green, may we view the recording you offered? Noah stood just enough to pass forward his phone. Sonia played the first clip on Noah's phone while the operations manager watched beside her. Adrian sat in 2D, hands visible, voice low. Vanessa peeled Adrian's name label from the salmon tray and placed the meal before Langley. The second clip showed her opening the insulated catering bag marked "Do Not Serve," temperature hold, removing the sandwich, peeling the service label from its outer sleeve, and carrying the inner package to Adrian's seat. Elaine looked directly at Sonia. He never left his seat. He never raised his voice. Sonia faced Derek again. Why did your report omit the spoiled food, the reassigned meal, and 2 witnesses? Derek's expression hardened with embarrassment. I relied on Ms. Pike's account. You were the manager, Sonia said. Why did you not inspect the food, interview the witnesses, or verify the video before escalating? He had no answer that did not expose the answer. Louise stepped forward. I had to trust my crew. Safety decisions cannot wait for perfect information. Adrian looked at her. You could have trusted your crew and still checked the video. You chose not to. Louise's face changed slightly. The certainty remained, but something beneath it had cracked. Sonia turned to Vanessa. You told Mr. Cole he did not resemble the executive passengers you usually serve. What did you mean? Vanessa drew herself upright. I meant his manner and appearance. Nothing more. Adrian placed his boarding pass and membership card on the tray table. The gesture was quiet. Final. This ticket was enough, he said. I should not have to dress according to your imagination to deserve respect. Sonia let the silence stand before speaking again. There is one additional fact relevant to tomorrow's governance review. Dr. Adrian Cole is the founder and CEO of Cedar Bridge Analytics. He is also NorthVale's newly appointed independent board member. Vanessa went pale. Derek lowered his eyes. Louise's expression froze. Adrian looked at all three of them. My position does not make what happened wrong. It only makes this file harder to close than the others. After the witnesses had given preliminary statements, Sonia met privately with the three crew members. Vanessa and Derek were placed on paid administrative leave pending investigation. Louise was removed from active scheduling until her decision-making process could be reviewed. No one was fired in the cabin. Accountability, Adrian knew, was not theater. It had to survive after the witnesses went home. The boardroom overlooked downtown Montreal through a wall of cold morning glass. 11 directors sat around the long oak table, coffee cooling beside folders marked confidential. At the center, Adrian placed 4 items in a straight line: a photograph of the sealed sandwich, the food safety chain of custody receipt, Derek's incident report, and a printed summary of 12 complaints NorthVale had already declared resolved. No one spoke at first. In the photograph, the sandwich looked almost ordinary. The accompanying evidence log made clear that it was not. "I am not here to ask for revenge," Adrian said. "I am here because 3 systems failed at the same time." He began with food safety. A product marked for removal had reached a passenger because a warning label could be stripped away without creating an alert. He proposed digital seals tied to employee credentials, automatic temperature flags, and a preservation rule requiring any disputed food to remain untouched until reviewed. Then he opened the complaint file. 12 passengers had described similar treatment. Each case had been handled alone. Each had ended with points, a voucher, or a polished apology. Compensation closed the customer record, Adrian said. It did not answer the complaint. An independently selected platform could compare patterns across routes, employees, passenger groups, and report language. Cedar Bridge would be permitted to compete for the work, but Adrian would take no part in vendor selection or approval. It would not decide intent. It would make repetition harder to hide. The third failure brought the room to silence. Derek's report had transformed a seated passenger with spoiled food into a possible threat. The phrase "unruly passenger" had moved faster than the facts because safety language carried authority few people dared challenge. "Aviation safety must remain absolute," Adrian said. "That is exactly why it cannot be used as cover for avoiding accountability." He asked NorthVale to reopen every related complaint, contact each passenger directly, and submit the review process to an independent human rights and aviation safety panel. No one argued about cost. By then, the documented cost of doing nothing was spread across the table in front of them. The investigation lasted 7 weeks. The independent review examined Vanessa's service records, prior complaints, witness statements, and her own formal response. Together, they established a repeated pattern of questioning Black passengers' eligibility, reallocating their requested services, and describing their objections as attitude problems. NorthVale terminated her employment after the formal review. Derek was demoted to a non-supervisory ground service role for omitting evidence and filing claims he had not verified. He could not apply for another management position until he completed retraining and passed an independent assessment. Louise remained off the flight schedule until she completed remedial training and passed an independent evaluation conducted by NorthVale's Flight Operations Safety Team and an external human factors specialist. NorthVale reopened all 12 complaints. Representatives called each passenger instead of sending templates. Some accepted apologies. Others asked for written findings. A few wanted nothing more from the airline. Their refusal was respected. NorthVale also changed its compensation policy. Points could accompany an investigation, never replace one. Months later, Adrian boarded another NorthVale flight in Toronto. He wore the same Navy suit and carried the same worn leather bag. At the door, a young flight attendant scanned his boarding pass. The screen flashed green. His name appeared automatically on the boarding display. She smiled. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Cole. Seat 2D is on the right. No second check, no narrowed eyes, no question hidden inside politeness." She did not know his title. She did not need to. Adrian settled into his seat and opened a book instead of a board packet. When lunch arrived, the tray carried an electronic seal showing the preparation time, storage record, and crew verification. The same small card appeared on every meal tray in the cabin. Safety does not depend on status. Respect does not either. Adrian ran one thumb over the edge of the card, then set it down. Outside the window, the runway blurred and Toronto fell away beneath the wing. He had received apologies, votes, and official findings. None mattered as much as this quiet moment. This time, a valid ticket had been enough. Adrian looked out at the shrinking runway and understood that the real victory was not being recognized as powerful. It was building a system in which the next passenger would not need power to be believed. If this story made you think, like the video and subscribe for more. Which moment stayed with you most, and where are you watching from?